This is going to be a film study that focuses on some of the Detroit Lions' tactical mistakes that they made in an ultimately frustrating loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers, dropping this team to 8-7. It's really a result or a point in time that I don't think you could have predicted for 2025. No one, not myself at least, would have possibly considered that this team will be 8-7 at this point, facing the very low percent possibility to make the playoffs at all. And then to have it be Aaron Rodgers on top of it has to be something that I know disappoints you guys as well. All right, we'll get the film started here, and this is going to be, really a play that I couldn't be more angry about now watching the film, but I was immediately upon watching it live. I believe the ball was snapped here with 11 seconds left in the second quarter, and the Lions are up 10-3. This is a coverage, or I believe this to be a coverage that Detroit has played oftentimes throughout 2025. I'll call it like a two-man variation. So basically, you've got two high safeties. I really started to refer to this a lot after the Lions came to Baltimore and won in week 3. So basically, you're going to end up with Alex Anzalone man-to-man on Kenneth Gainwell. I don't think that that's a bad matchup in every iteration. Don't get me wrong. We've clearly got a DPI by Anzalone up at the top side of the screen. What I really hate about this one, to be honest with you, is the fact that this late in the half, a safety who originally lined up to the same side of the field as Jack Campbell and Alex Anzalone, inside linebackers. In the case of Anzalone, he's been assigned to play man-to-man on running backs and tight ends for the better part of 2 years plus, and oftentimes he's been exceptional at it. In my opinion, down here, you've got Scotty Miller against DJ Reed, who you paid a lot of money to bring him in as a free agent. I don't know that we need to drop the safety down here so obviously to help DJ Reed with, I think there was 11 seconds. Maybe I'm mistaken, and there was 17 seconds left in the half at the beginning of the play. It's an unbelievable, unlikely catch, right, by Kenneth Gainwell. Don't get me wrong. Was he touched before the catch? Should it have counted? I really don't give a shit. The reality is you put yourself in this position, and I hate to say this in this manner, but this is something that a couple of Ravens fans mentioned in the Ravens Discord while watching the game on Sunday afternoon. You get what you deserve. When you play these types of coverages this late in a half, you're up 10-3. What's wrong with giving up a 15-yard completion to a zone defense, allowing a field goal? You go into the half with a 10-6 lead at worst. This is an example, if you ask me, of the Lions not being able to do what I refer to as mitigate risk. Yes, this is a coverage that you played a lot of, whereby the safeties, in this case it's Avonte Maddox, will look for a first crosser. And the first crosser here is, I think this is Scotty Miller, like I said, and Maddox is basically crossing him up. I understand that this coverage has been fruitful, or it's been productive for the most part of 2025, especially when Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph were your two safeties. As much as I don't like listening to Tony Romo, and he was incredibly off base during Sunday's game, talking about the Lions are going to play more zone, they should play more zone, et cetera, et cetera. First of all, that never happened, right? Tony Romo doesn't have a clue, and he clearly hasn't watched film of Kelvin Sheppard's defense, because this is what they do. And when I say this, I mean they put Alex Anzalone in these situations. Whether he's back in 2026 or not, that's not a part of this conversation for me. But what I will say is you shouldn't be putting him in this situation in this moment. It's a common sense approach. This is not game awareness or situational awareness that requires you to be very high on the ladder, I guess. This is Avonte Maddox, so again, drop down to defend the receiver crossing against DJ Reed, who I think can handle that matchup. That's probably a larger point or a more simple way of saying it. And because Maddox totally vacates that side of the field, it's easy access for Aaron Rodgers. It cannot be this easy for Rodgers, or any quarterback for that matter, to just throw the football downfield and generate an opportunity for what are the possible outcomes, right? You've got an incomplete pass. That's the worst case scenario for the Steelers. A DPI, which they actually did, obtain, or Gainwell makes a circus catch to produce a touchdown that ties the game at 10. That really never can happen if you're calling a responsible defense, in my opinion. If you didn't really sign up for this level of negativity, I understand it, because We're all frustrated, being in the situation. Look, as a Ravens fan, we're in the same spot, actually a worse spot from a record standpoint. But I have to be real. It's not going to get any better. This is going to be, I believe, Jaylen Warren's first touchdown run of the fourth quarter, his first 45-yard touchdown run. In fact, it's going to come on a 2nd and 5, and the Lions are just not lined up. So there's a way to count numbers, and I've gone over it many times before on this channel. If you've seen me do this before, my apologies. If you have not every person is going to do this pre-snap, and it certainly doesn't occur live on an NFL field, but it's based on alignment rules, teaching players how to line up based upon the formation that is shown. So the way that I'll do this is, you guys are probably familiar at the beginning of a play, I always like to draw the midline. That's what separates the formation from a right and left standpoint, so we'll use that blue line as the midline. And right now the Lions have 5 players to their right or our left-hand side of the screen. Jack Campbell, Alex Anzalone, Derek Barnes, DJ Reed are 4, and I believe that's Tyleik Williams. You can see it's pretty easy to count 5. You do have one player, I think DJ Reader, who's just canted or offset from the midline. He would count to the field, with this being the field side and this being the boundary. For the Steelers, and we'll use a different color for this, their count is going to be a little bit different, and I recognize that non-football people are not going to like a certain aspect of this. So there's the left guard, left tackle is 2, the jumbo or eligible offensive lineman is 3, Darnell Washington is 4, the other tight end, Jonnu Smith, is 5. For some people, they would say, oh, well, we're lined up. No, you're not. The midline, the players who are on the midline, again, on this blue line, they count for a half a man to each side, which is the reason why the center, Aaron Rodgers, and then the running back, if you 0.5 times 3 is 1.5, we're basically adding these 5 players here to the 1.5 that I just illustrated are on the midline. That gives the Steelers a 1.5 man advantage into the boundary. There is no scenario by which you can stop a run play, a direct flow run play, if you're down 1.5 men to either the boundary or the field. It just doesn't work. The only way that it possibly could work is if someone from the other side of the midline is crossing the midline to defend that run play. So the 2 biggest candidates would be Avonte Maddox crossing the midline to defend this toss concept to Jaylen Warren. I probably should let the play flow a couple of times through, and I'll return to the count or discussing the count. If no one crosses the midline, you just don't have enough numbers to defend it. Even if you don't want to count the center and Aaron Rodgers, which is tactically incorrect. If you don't want to count those guys, fine. Still do the math. 5 Lions defenders to defend 5 potential blockers or 5 actual blockers for the Steelers and the guy who has the football. You're down a man. It's called 6 to 5. That's actually not the way that the count occurs, or at least the way that I was taught to teach defensive players how to line up. Is Jack Campbell, Alex Anzalone, DJ Reed, are those guys thinking of that count in their mind pre-snap? No, but it's about, from a coaching standpoint, teaching rules, alignment rules. Alignment means where do you stand pre-snap that gets you in the right spot to be able to defend any play to either side. And then to compound it, they bring Avonte Maddox off the edge, basically underneath the formation in a manner that totally opens up totally opens up the 2nd/3rd level of the defense for Jaylen Warren to burst through. This is unconscionable alignment, and the type of thing that on the staffs that I've been a part of would probably result in you either getting fired or getting punched in the face. We don't really need to see that play from the all-22 angle, or at least I don't. In fact, I kind of eschewed or delayed recording this video because I was so pissed off watching the film. I knew what I was looking at live during the broadcast, and then the all-22/end zone angle just confirmed it in a way that was ultimately frustrating. Look, it's 15-10 at this point. We're into the fourth quarter. The defense had played really well, I think, for the first for the first quarter plus, up until the final minute, the final decision that Kelvin Sheppard made to give up that touchdown pass to Kenneth Gainwell. I think the defense was really obviously the stronger side for Detroit. So if you ascribe to or understand the count system that I gave you, right? The Lions are down 1.5 men into the boundary, the top side of the field where Jaylen Warren goes. What does that mean? To the field, it means that you've got too many guys. So you've got both safeties, Avonte Maddox and I believe that's Harper, lined up to the field where Rock Ya-Sin is there to possibly guard DK Metcalf if it's a pass play. But mathematically, both teams have 11 players. So that means the Lions actually end up being plus 1.5 or have 1.5 more defensive players to defend a run concept or a pass play to the field because, 6.5 or 4.5 plus 6.5 for the Steelers is 11. And then 6 to the field for the Lions versus 5 to the boundary up here also adds up to equal 11. The idea is if you are going to be, quote, down a man or down half a man, you need someone to cross the midline. I guess I will let this one run through. I wasn't planning on doing so. Keep in mind, it's a toss play to Jaylen Warren, to this side. And because the safety isn't crossing the midline to become an additional second-level defender, with him going underneath, you have no ability once Jaylen Warren gets through here. It's a really poor job by Tyleik Williams on the front end as well. I think Pittsburgh blocked well. I think they won in a lot of these individual engagements up front. That's a big part of this. But lining up in this piss-poor manner opened yourself up for this type of finish. There's no real dereliction of duty or anything like that involved with this play. This is later in the fourth quarter. And I'm going to show you 2 plays, I think, from the 9th possession. It's just a fantastic throw from Rodgers to DK Metcalf. I think Rock played his ass off against DK Metcalf throughout the entirety of the game. I do want to illustrate something that's interesting from a Steelers perspective. It's a 13 personnel group. So what I mean by that is they've got 2 tight ends down here to the bottom. A third tight end is Freiermuth, and he's motioning across. But they're creating an 11 personnel formation. I call this Pro Twins A. So you got Pro is the tight end and the Z to the boundary, and then the A designation is the running back to that side. Twins up here. I don't know why they're doing this because it really doesn't matter to Kelvin Sheppard and Dan Campbell. They're going to play the coverages they want to, and they're going to do it from a 4-3 personnel group. So whether there's 11 personnel, 3 wide receivers on the field or not, it really doesn't amount to a hill of beans for Kelvin Sheppard. He's going to put Derek Barnes out there as that 7th defender. In this case, he's dropping out to the field over number 2, which is Freiermuth, the tight end. The ball here is just out super quick from an Aaron Rodgers standpoint. Very reminiscent, or similar, I should say, to some stuff that Matt Stafford did against the Lions. Getting rid of the football super quick. I had this one at 1.92 seconds from the time the ball was snapped. And even then, I thought my math was wrong because it seemed like Rodgers got rid of it quicker. If you guys are interested, or actually whether you're interested or not, I'll probably do a film study video about Rock Ya-Sin on DK Metcalf. I think it's worthy of attention how well Rock has played in the last 5 to 6 weeks. All right, this is, I believe, the very next snap, or perhaps 2 snaps later. It's a 1st and 10. This will be Jaylen Warren's second 45-yard run. How do they get this accomplished? Well, you got a very poor job by, I think it's Tyleik Williams, the defensive tackle up here. Him and Aiden Hutchinson both kind of taking the mindset post-snap of setting the edge, turning the football back inside. It's also a very predictable play. The Steelers, throughout most of 2025, when they line up in this formation, 21 personnel, whether it's jumbo or typical 21 personnel, we're talking about 2 tight ends, one of which is set up in the backfield. It's Hayward, who's actually the younger brother of Cam Hayward. He's a tight end from a position standpoint, but he's lined up in the backfield here as a fullback. This is a really poor job by Tyleik Williams, if you ask me. Aleem McNeil played it worse, to be honest with you, earlier in the game. So everyone for the Pittsburgh Steelers offensive line is working in this direction from a zone standpoint. The fullback is also stepping in that direction. He's actually going to peel back and then pick up Jack Campbell. I'm going to use a phrase that football people talk about, and some of you may not be, as familiar. It's called a free release. A free release means the offensive linemen are not having to combo at all. This happens because, Roy Lopez, who's had some moments this year for the Lions, he's getting absolutely dominated by the center, and it's from a single block standpoint. So what I mean is, because of the alignment, and I will give you the end zone angle here in a moment, because of the alignment of Roy Lopez as the nose tackle, you're oftentimes going to get a combo where the center and the right guard work on Lopez, and then they get up to the second level. They don't have to do that here. The right guard immediately takes over Lopez. And what that means is the center is allowed to free release up to Anzalone. Anzalone has no option here other than to run full speed into the center or just on the outside half of the center's body, or I should say the middle of the center's body. My apologies for that. He does not do so. He goes underneath, which is also a poor tactical decision. You've got so many factors here. Tyleik Williams getting upfield. The nose tackle getting what I'll call scooped, which allow, related to that, point 2A is the center free releasing up to Anzalone. In addition, because you play so much man to the boundary from a Kelvin Sheppard'S standpoint, that's what he does tactically, schematically. Because he plays so much man to the boundary, when DK Metcalf goes to block the safety, Rock Ya-Sin goes with him. Rock doesn't know if it's a pass or a run play because he's playing man. His eyes are on DK Metcalf. So functionally, you know what happens here? DK Metcalf blocks 2. This is really poor, if you ask me, from a Detroit Lions standpoint. It's just another illustration of how the defense fell off a cliff after that touchdown to Kenneth Gainwell late in the second quarter. I thought they had played well, I believe, over the first 4 or 5 possessions. As an aside, kind of related to the previous, or 2 plays ago, what I broke down from the numbers standpoint, you're balanced up here into the boundary. There's 5 defenders for the Lions. Anzalone, Tyleik Williams, I think that's Harper, and Hutchinson. Rock Ya-Sin is off screen to our left, so that's 5 for the Lions. The same count exists for the Steelers from a number standpoint. Left guard, left tackle, DK Metcalf off screen to our left, matched up with Rock Ya-Sin, and then the same 1.5 count, 2 count for the Steelers. It would be the center and Aaron Rodgers, half a man each. That's 1, and then the fullback / tight end and Jaylen Warren. That's a half a man each. That's another 1. So 3 plus 2 is 5 for the Steelers. You are balanced up, but it doesn't mean that you're going to be able to stop the run. You can't play blocks like this and this here, especially when it's an extremely predictable formation. This is the 3rd time in this game the Steelers have lined up in this formation out of a 12-personnel group. It's been a lead zone concept to the weak side all 3 times, up to the point in time that I'm showing you this on the 9th possession again in the fourth quarter. Tyleik Williams is getting upfield a little bit too much for me. And he's getting expanded, but look, Aleem McNeil played it even worse earlier on. Aleem McNeil actually ended up overlapping Aiden Hutchinson. Basically means he's wider than Aiden Hutchinson. You can see that's not the case with Tyleik Williams, but it allows this huge gap between the 2 defensive tackles to exist. Let me pull that back a little bit. This huge gap between the 2 defensive tackles, Tyleik Williams and Roy Lopez, that's exactly where Jaylen Warren goes. Yeah, it's a nice block by Hayward, the tight end / fullback on Jack Campbell. That's like the 3rd part of this. It's a domino effect. This is not what caused this play to fail, or I should say, from a Steelers standpoint, to succeed. You've got so many factors whereby the Steelers have, I think, manipulated the Detroit Lions defense into these boundary side or left side runs. If you notice, both of these first 2 touchdowns I showed you, the ball's on the left hash, and the run ends up being into the boundary where you're playing almost exclusively man. Those things are not coincidence, if you ask me. All right, if you're not disappointed enough, this is going to be one that's also concerning because of how easy Aaron Rodgers and Kenneth Gainwell are able to access this. This is earlier in the game, in fact. It's on the 7th possession. The ball's on the left hash. And it just talks about the boundary side coverage being so predictable for the Lions that it's easy to exploit. So Kenneth Gainwell is a running back that leads their team in catches. And he's going to motion over. Aaron Rodgers, I think, at this point knows that Gainwell is going to be wide open into the boundary here. Well, why? Well, first of all, DK Metcalf's running like a vertical, and Rock Ya-Sin, again, I think he played extremely well against DK, competing with him. DK was very inefficient from a catches to target standpoint, but because of how reliant, or I should say maybe over-reliant, Kelvin Sheppard'S defense is on playing man, Rodgers knew that Rock Ya-Sin was going to follow or basically shade DK Metcalf. I mean, Kenneth Gainwell is wide open. Anyone could complete this pass. This is too easy to manipulate, in my opinion, from a coverage standpoint. Some of the plays I've shown you earlier is just irresponsible alignment or tactical awareness. Is it possible that Alex Anzalone is supposed to expand with this route by Gainwell? Sure, it's absolutely possible. I would say if this is a coverage mistake by Anzalone, then why does he continue to be on the field? We're talking about third quarter. Again, this is seventh possession. All of the two previous plays I showed you were from the ninth possession. I kind of backtracked here chronologically. My point is it shouldn't be this easy to manipulate an NFL defense, whether it's a blown coverage or not. This is the same play from the end zone angle. I'll actually cut the video here after this. It's a 2nd and 10. You'd like to get these guys to 3rd and 10. It's not, Rodgers was, I think, 10 of his last 12 passing on 3rd down, or maybe he was 10 of 12 passing overall. You kind of got DK on the right-hand side of our screen, the right-hand side of the defense for the Lions. And again, Rock is going to shadow him. Harper is going to also kind of be playing that vertical. Gainwell's a really good player. He's having a great year for them. Aaron Rodgers seems to trust him. They consistently praise him. He's made a number of big plays. This is too easy. There's just no reason why an NFL defense shouldn't be able to deal with a vertical by the X receiver into the boundary and then an out route by a guy who went in motion from the field. The field is the wide side of the field, in case I refer to it too often and you guys don't understand that. This is what makes it frustrating for me. The big plays that were given up in this game that ultimately puts the Lions in a tremendous uphill climb, low percent possibility to even sniff the playoffs. You need a lot of help, I think, at this point to get it done. But this ease of access, like the last play that I showed you, I think Kelvin Sheppard, there was a point in time this year where he had done some creative things, specifically the 3+1 blitz, 3+1 spy blitz late with Derek Barnes, Trevor Nowatzki, and others, the two-man coverage when Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch and those guys were around. But as the season has developed, I think it's pretty obvious this defense is too easy to exploit. Many teams do play man into the boundary, don't get me wrong. The Seattle Seahawks, they specialize in it. Anzalone has been a guy that they've relied on to play man on running backs and tight ends into the boundary for a couple of years. This game, and especially recently, it's just too easy for offenses, for quarterbacks, whether it's Matt Stafford, whether it's Aaron Rodgers, whether it's Jameis Winston, for those guys to exploit these coverages. Like it or not, quarterbacks at this point probably look forward to this matchup. Is some of that, look forward to matching up against the Lions' coverages. Is some of that because of the talent that's out? Terrion Arnold, Brian Branch, Kirby Joseph? Sure. But if you watch the game live and you paid attention during this breakdown, you know that it was just too simple and just too easy for Aaron Rodgers, for their offensive coordinator Smith, and their receivers and tight ends to exploit things. Rodgers did finish, I think, 27 of 41 passing. He had the one touchdown, the unlikely one to Gainwell. 10 of 12 passing on 3rd downs, I believe. Those critical moments, man, he just carved Detroit's defense up. This is too easy and not, in my opinion, not high-level NFL coordination, nor showing any ability to adjust during the play. The big one for me, the tipping point, was up 10-3 late in the second quarter. You give up that big touchdown to Gainwell against Anzalone. Shouldn't have been put in that position in the first place. I don't mean Anzalone should be off the field there. What I mean is a safety like Maddox shouldn't be jumping an underneath route from the other side of the field when you have a competent, talented corner like DJ Reed to handle it. I think that was the start of a series of really poor tactical choices by Kelvin Sheppard and the Lions defensive staff, and then tremendously low awareness level in the second half as well. You guys are more than welcome to agree or disagree with me in the comments section. If you stuck around this long for a film study that was obviously quite negative on my end, I appreciate that, first of all. Second of all, if you wouldn't consider, liking and or commenting on the video to kind of help it gain more exposure. I recognize that after a loss, most fans of any fan base, not just the Lions, are going to kind of tune out from content. So if you did check this video out, I applaud you, and you stuck around this long. And finally, if you think other Lions fans would enjoy this film study video, or at least appreciate the honesty that I'm giving you, as well as the plays that I use to illustrate my points, then please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach.